Okay, good morning. This is Major World Religions, Theology 26101. I'm Dr. George Gilmore. Please be comfortable, even though this is being videotaped, because you won't be put on the spot or anything. I wouldn't ask you to come up in the front and do an obscure math problem or anything. So please be comfortable. What I'd like to do initially is, and especially if I'm a little too loud, please be comfortable stepping back, okay? I do want to do one other thing, and that's get this screen up out of my face, which I possibly should have done, and change the projector somewhat. At any rate, but if you find it that I'm a little too loud, please don't be uncomfortable moving further back or wherever you might be. In fact, do that generally. You may have heard that this course is admirably suited for a summer school class like this, when you have 3 hours and you say, how am I going to survive 3 hours? Or the graduate students would be looking at 6 hours. We used to do 6-hour classes on Saturday, and basically these students may do that in some cases. The films are a huge contribution. Okay, and it allows me to introduce the course by saying that there basically are 4 components to the course that will help you when you think of how are you going to survive 3 hours at a time, and that would be true of the graduate students for the morning and then another 3 hours in the afternoon. We always have a film, and the films are 15 minutes. That's 50, not 15. Okay? I tease myself and you, and as you get to know me, you'll think, well, you could tease me too, and that wouldn't be unwelcome. And in the familial atmosphere of Spring Hill College, not untypical, but I tease myself for being a little compulsive, okay? And it helps you because this entire course, especially once we do the videos, and you're basically experiencing the videos by being here, okay? And I don't know if there's an occasional class that if you were out, the car didn't work, or whatever else it was, whether we will have that so you could see the class subsequently later on that day, or certainly before a midterm or a final. But at any rate, what you have on hand is you have these videos already streamed. I'll check with the library to make sure that you all have access to what's in the library on eCompanion, okay? But all the films are there also, but I find if I show them also in class, they are available to people in a variety of circumstances. Father Williams, whom you know, teaches English, he showed these films in Bologna. So, you just say the World Wide Web really is worldwide. At any rate, the films are valuable because they immerse you in the experience. Okay? You meet people. Now, let me pick one that may be a little politically sensitive, namely Islam. Now, the film, occasionally people might give me some heat because the films are older. Okay? This film on Islam, and all the films generally, were made in the mid to late 70s. Okay? So it is pre-terrorism Islam. Okay? In communicating to you the significance of these films, okay? This film was made in Egypt in a very westernized situation. The couple that are the two that we get to know best, he's a professor of chemical pathology at the University of Cairo. We see him in his lab jacket. He talks very professionally about science and what have you, and yet he also talks about his Islamic faith and being what somebody would mean by a Sufi, and whether he is that or not, okay, which he says not, okay, because it's an Islamic mystic. Okay, his wife, like I find women in this course, kind of interested because they've heard about the role of women in Islamic countries. She's a professor of pediatrics, and she's in the Department of Pediatrics at the University of Cairo, so she's a first-class professional, okay? She runs a hospital on the side. Did you guys run a hospital on the side? Okay? And she's a very professional person, but also a very devout Muslim. And we see her with a headscarf on and in a pantsuit working in this hospital that she and her husband started. So we see a very gracious and loving and attractive introduction to Islam, which we could use more of. And did you all hear that a Muslim just got elected mayor of London by the largest majority that has ever elected somebody to be mayor of London? So we kind of hear that that's another one of those European countries that has such an influx of Muslims. How are they dealing with it? Okay. At any rate, what did I just cover? The film component of the course. Okay. When I tease myself about being a little compulsive, I have typed out the entire film script of all 13, not compulsive, of all 13 films, and you have that on eCompanion also. You don't need to download it because that would just saddle you with another textbook. Okay, but it's there in case you miss something and you say, well, I'd really like to follow up on that. Okay, so that's both the films and the film scripts are all on eCompanion, which you have access to. Let me say something about the texts. And you all are welcome. I don't know if you live near enough each other or can work things out, even to share textbooks. I'm always a little paranoid about the cost of textbooks, which is, I realize, is astronomical. I've had 3 of my sons and daughters go through Spring Hill College, and someone showed me, my daughter showed me an art history textbook that cost $300, I think. Okay, I have 2 books. Okay, the first, Introduction to World Religions, is a great encyclopedic cover. Great pictures, great coverage. Half the price of the book that I used, which was far less attractive previously. Okay, so but you're welcome to get this online and to get them from the bookstore here. Of course, they're used copies or whatever else. And I'm using this in the fall, so there ought to be plenty of copies around. Okay, so you can get that. And that was encyclopedic and inclusive. This is systematic and somewhat restrictive. It really is the major world's religions. Students really like this textbook because it's clear, it's accessible, and not compulsive, not compulsive. I have this book completely outlined in the notes which you have now, okay, and which I will work through in class as is relevant as the days of the class pass by. Okay, but that outline is also completely on eCompanion. So if you lose a page or whatever, you can download it in a minute, or I can zap you copies and attachment to an email. Okay, so that covers this book, which is systematic and clear. Okay, this book, which is encyclopedic and inclusive. The videos, which are deeply personal. Okay, and very valuable in terms of what they say about and how women and men experience that religious tradition. Okay, so that's the value of having a representative of that tradition in the classroom with you talking about it and what he or she would communicate and how he or she lives that religious experience. Okay? Okay. So that's 3 of the components. The 4th component would be the class lectures and the sets of notes that you have. Now let's just take a minute with those sets of notes which you picked up as you came in. I'd like you to realize that that set of notes goes all together. You got it in 3 or 4 components. You can turn in the manila folder if you don't want the manila folder. Later on in the day you can just leave it or what have you. Some people take them and have them punched and put them into a 3-ring binder, which is convenient. Okay? Although you'll only need to bring with you what you have relevant to that day's materials. Okay. Now, but you possibly are looking at them. You just picked up. If you pick up and look at the front page, so let me see. I have to make sure I know names: Ashley, Matt, and Henry. Okay. Ashley, you just picked up, and that top page of the other one. That is the list of everything that's in those notes. Okay, if you find you don't have something, please contact me and I'll get that to you. Henry, do you have it? Yes, you have it right there. Now, the other 2 items you picked up, one was a syllabus, okay, which is noted on that set of notes as page 2. Okay, I hope. Every so often when I'm working with different sets of notes from different classes, I'm not accurate, but yes. So if you want to organize this, perhaps happily in front of you somewhere, you would take the manila folder, if you want to continue to use it, put the large, thick set of notes in it, and then put the syllabus in behind this first page list, because that's where the syllabus goes. And if you would look down this list, you would see item 10, questions for the midterm, and then item 11, comments on midterm questions. That's the stapled separate item that you picked up. So that goes in the set of notes after handout 10. Okay? Now, you don't necessarily need to put it in there now, but that's just where it would fit, and that will give you a complete set of notes. The reason I have that separated out is that's the only set of materials that is stapled. So otherwise, I take the other set, and we used to have this printed on campus, and it cost that much more. But right now, you get those free. They are just handouts with the class, and I have never gotten any protest from the administration about that. At any rate, the set of notes, I hope, is really helpful, because what it gives you is it gives you the outline of one of the textbooks. It gives you outlines of important essays. Please don't get paranoid, but handout 10 contains all the questions that I will ask you on the midterm. And please don't bother worrying or being intimidated by handout 17, which is the last page, which has all the questions that I will have on the final. So you're given all the questions ahead of time. Okay? In many cases, those questions are answered by what you have with handout 11. Handout 11 is the sample answer material, but then there are outlines. And you'll see this as this goes. This will be a lot less complicated once we're off and running, okay? But you'll see in the pages that are following a particular major world religion, there are outlines that are outlines of an answer to the question on handout 10, okay? And they all kind of fit together. Now, this is why I can get away with a certain amount of improvisational theater in here. You have all questions for all tests ahead of time. You have sample answer material for the questions on the midterm, because in many cases I always get tests back to students, even when I have 60 students. I always get the tests back to them the next class. And if I'm really on top of things, I'll have a typed explanation of what people left out, what needs to be emphasized in particular areas, and that's where handout 11 came from. Okay. Furthermore, back again to teasing myself about not being compulsive or whatever. I can share with you that feeling that you all have this past semester or whenever, that it's 2 o'clock in the morning, the day that a paper's due, and you haven't written it yet, and you've got it written partially in your mind, but not yet. We had a solicitation from a website that said, do you have young people who are juniors and seniors in their journalism majors or creative writing majors, and they'd like to write on major world religions, because we're a website that would like some breadth. So I contacted some people like yourselves to contact if they wanted to be part of it. And then I wrote to them and I said, are you interested in essays from older people? And they said yes. So I sent them a couple of samples, and they said, please write for us. So like yourselves, but maybe a little bit worse, in terms of that terror that you have at 2 o'clock in the morning when you haven't written the paper yet, I wrote 1,000 to 1,500 words for 2.5 years, per week for 2.5 years. In many cases, those essays were on the questions. So you guessed it, that's on eCompanion also. So there are whole essays that answer many of those questions. So if anything, you have almost too much stuff. And I welcome your not downloading it and giving yourself yet another textbook, but especially if you miss a class. Okay? And the class covered a particular question, and you'll find a lot of these questions are very meat and potatoes questions. Okay, they're not outer space, philosophy of religion, spacey discussions. Although one or two may be that. Okay, but generally they are specific things that you can consciously organize and define and explain. Okay, okay. So, and those essays that I wrote, if they were relevant to particular questions for the midterm or the final, are also on eCompanion. Okay. Okay. A couple of other things that may be helpful. As I said, I always will get your tests back to you, and graduate students that may be listening to this and taking these, I'll be asking the graduate students for 3 to 5 page essays for each class taken from handout 10 or handout 17. So I'll get that kind of material back to people more or less immediately. With those of you that are undergraduates, if you take a test and you don't get as high a grade as you'd like to have gotten on it, you're welcome to retake it. If you retake it and you do better, you get the higher grade. You don't get an averaged grade, you get the higher grade because that's what you knew at that particular time. I don't feel that I need to be punitive about this or whatever. So that will encourage you. If I'm going to get them back to you the next day, they're not going to have a whole lot of red ink on them. And so you might want to just leave the test, and I welcome that. You might leave the test on the desk at the end of class, and I'll get it back to you the next day with a fuller explanation of why you got the grade that you got. Okay? And sometimes people are a little annoyed because they think they really did a lot better. And then I refer them to, things like those essays that are on eCompanion that give you a very full explanation of what could be asked for on that. Okay? Now, the other thing is handout 3. If you look at handout 3 for a minute, so this is what's in front of you in handout 3, and also the syllabus. I owe you some quick comments on handout 3 and on the syllabus. On handout 3, there's something that I find helps if you are Catholic or you're not Catholic and you're at a religiously affiliated institution. Are women and men who are on the faculty going to try to ram what they think is the truth down your throats? Okay? Once upon a time, theology at Spring Hill College was taught as part of campus ministry. A decisive understanding was made by the Jesuit faculty when I first came to Spring Hill College. And I was the only non-Jesuit in the theology faculty. So the Jesuits, in an open faculty-wide meeting, asked the faculty as a whole to recognize that theology was an academic discipline like any other discipline. So it did not expect you to register faith or commitment in theology department classes. So especially if you were not Catholic, that was reassuring. And oddly and incidentally, in 1830, that was in the prospectus for Spring Hill College, that it would accept students of any religious background and would not attempt to convert them to Catholicism. In 1830, we were surprised. At any rate, it was a recognition that has continued until the present, okay, of respecting the religious integrity of the students. At any rate, some of that is on handout 3. Okay? So handout 3 is about the academic study of religious experience and religious language. So it just touches on some things that I hope you possibly have begun to pick up by body language already, and that would be mutual respect, okay? That's going on in here, that you're encouraged to ask questions. You may have noticed already that I'm sort of a professional at talking, and I've probably been found talking animatedly in empty rooms. And this may be a pathology that I have to work out. But at any rate, it helps you get through classes because a certain amount of this is improvisational theater, as I've said. My classes are improved by the sound of other people's voices because I speak to you. I don't just speak to the issue or to outer space or to inner space. So you're welcome to interrupt. Let me say something else that's critical. My job is helping you understand this material. It's none of my business whether you buy into it. As a pre-Vatican II cradle Catholic, I have found this stuff substantially helpful in deepening and extending my experience of Catholicism. And those of you that would be from Protestant traditions, or that I've had women and men obviously who are Jewish, even Hindu, Buddhist rarely, but Islamic in this class, okay, who have been comfortable with the way the class has been taught. But in the history of Christianity, Christianity has been deeply affected and enriched by dialoguing with other major world religions. If I could mention two pre-Christian pagans that you might think, oh, that would be terrible to include their thought in Christianity. Pure, clear Christianity of Jesus' teaching shouldn't be trashed by pagan thought, which is what very early Christian defenders of the faith said about Plato and Aristotle, except that let me overemphasize that word, Saint Augustine was a Neoplatonist, and Neoplatonic Christian theology was mainline theology until Saint Thomas Aquinas took a pagan, excuse the vulgar gesture that I'm about to do, pagan evolutionary biologist named Aristotle. You think Aristotle's an outer space theologian. Aristotle's father was a medical doctor. Aristotle went around the Aegean 2,300 years ago collecting eggs in tidal pools, and some hatched out into fish and some hatched out into starfish or sea urchins or whatever, and he kind of said why. He was looking for DNA. He didn't call it that, okay? I mean, he called it final causality or entelechy. What is it in something that makes it develop into something specific? He wrote an essay on zoology. He wrote an essay on astronomy. It's obviously, in some cases now, laughably out of date, okay? But he was an evolutionary biologist, and his philosophical scientific method was incorporated by St. Thomas Aquinas into, not Aristotle, but Neo-Aristotelian thought. And there's fascinating stuff now going on by some of the more conservative members of Christianity in dialogue with Buddhists and Hindus. Okay? So there was one famous get-together at a Trappist monastery outside of Louisville, Kentucky, which had been the monastery of Thomas Merton, who's a visionary Catholic monk in dialogue with Buddhism. There were 50... I forget whether there were 50 participants or 25, or 50 Buddhist and 50 Catholic, Christian, because there were some who were Christian but not Catholic. Okay, the Dalai Lama was there. Okay, a representative of the Vatican was there, and they put a book out called Gethsemane Encounter, because the name of the monastery is Our Lady of Gethsemane. Okay, Buddhist Christian dialogue. Very conservative Christians are liable to say, you can't do that, you can't trash Christianity. What did St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas do? Okay? And therefore, what are women and men like ourselves welcomed into in terms of this dialogue with these major non-Christian traditions which enrich and sharpen insights? Okay? So we'll see when we get to Zen, which is a fun example of it. Okay? That the medieval Christian tradition of contemplative prayer, monks, monasteries, monastic discipline, is enormously shared by the different traditions. Okay? At any rate, so handout 3 says some things about mutual respect, and that's not only between you and me, which it certainly is, but it's between us and these major world religions. Okay? There's something about challenge. There's something that I already commented on about the academic nature of the course, about class participation. I nag you about trying to stay caught up. In other words, if you at least read the stuff once, I'm not going to do sneak quizzes or daily quizzes or what have you, okay? But if you try to stay caught up, the material will have a resonance, it will have a richness, okay? It's like dropping a stone in a cave when it would go boom, boom, the echoes would go out, as opposed to dropping a stone on a sidewalk when it just goes click or whatever. If you've read the stuff, there's a resonance. It's not as though you have active use of that material so that you can come back on a sneak quiz or what have you. But there's a richness. There's a resonance if you actually are in touch with it. Okay? So that touches on class participation. And that's when I also say again that my classes are improved by women and men like yourselves asking questions. Okay? Okay. Let's look at the syllabus for a minute, okay, which is there in front of you. Most of this is self-explanatory, okay. The objective, regardless of the videotaping, I stay on the syllabus pretty completely. Now, that means you'd have a good deal to read tonight. When we get to Hinduism on Friday, there's a lot to read on Friday. If you look, oh, and the P stands for Partridge, which is the encyclopedic book. Okay, the S stands for Smith, which is the systematic book, which is outline, and whose outlines you have in your notes now in logical progression. Okay. At any rate, if you try to read stuff quickly once, there'll be a richness, as I said. Okay. When we get to the stuff on Hinduism, so look for May 13th, Hinduism. Look at where it says P 330, 134 to 160. That's only 30 pages there. 165 to 187. Excuse me. That's only 20 pages there. But then 12 to 81. That's what, another 70 pages or so. Excuse me. Another 69 pages. So there's a lot. Okay. The stuff on Hinduism, the Smith 12 to 81, is handout 6. Now I'll talk about that on Thursday, tomorrow, as I'm introducing Friday's material. Okay. But initially, what we're doing is we're dealing with the religions. I really shouldn't cast this aside because there are more things on this page that I should refer to that would help you to sense that as we start off, we're starting off with primal religion, and they're not very substantially developed, okay, the way more sophisticated modern religions would be. But at any rate, the syllabus gives you the daily assignments, where the final grade comes from. It's pretty much 50-50 on the midterm and the final. If you're going to retake the midterm, you need to take it within 2 days, because otherwise it's just hopelessly lost in what we've done. The academic accommodations is mentioned there, support services, okay. So they're just recommendations that the college asks us to put on any particular syllabus, okay. So in case you didn't notice it, that was all possibly boring, but, you know, helpfully informational logistics stuff. Any questions on the stuff? And don't be shy about asking before or after class, before or after the first test, as we go along. But otherwise, we're sort of up to speed. Okay? Okay. Let me then begin to introduce the film that I'll be putting on in about 10 minutes. Okay? The film was made in Indonesia. It's handout, so this will help us a bit with the notes. Okay, so the opening page is the list of everything that's in there. If you find there's something there that you don't have, please let me know. So that's page 1. Page 2 is the syllabus we just looked at. Page 3 you might read when you get a chance about just the attitude in your class, which I find is helpful. And now we're on handout 4, which is Primal Religion. This is late in the Houston Smith book because earlier editions did not have anything on primal religion. And he already had his text set. So this is in a later part of the book. But this is what he has about that. And my thought might be, and an encouragement to you, is look over the outline, maybe read the outline somewhat carefully, and then read the text real quick. Okay, so you have from 365 to 383, so you can read that in 15 or 20 minutes, I would think. Okay, try and zip right along through it because I'd like you to be introduced to it, but not compulsive about it. Okay, I don't think I mentioned this introductory, but more compulsions. 4A is the video that we're about to see. So if you look at that real quickly each day before we actually see the film, like you could even put it off if you get to class a few minutes early, you could look at it. But 4A is the video we're about to see. Okay? What's on the back of it has some categories from another textbook that I have found helpful enough to continue on even though we've discontinued that textbook. That textbook is called The Religious Experience by Ninian Smart. It's double the price of our encyclopedic book. But it mentions in those 6 categories I'll comment about. But consequently, if this were a day college course in a regular semester, all you'd need to bring to class would be handouts 4 and 4A. Okay? For the subsequent class, I would have 2 classes, an introductory class and then material on primal religion in the first class. Okay? And then tomorrow will be handouts 5 and 5A and 5B, etc. Okay? So you kind of see how that works. Okay. But other than that, I'm starting off with an introduction to Primal Religion. Again, any questions about anything? As stuff comes up, and a final tease in a way, as I said, it's my job to help you understand this material. It's your job to understand it. It's not your job to buy into it, and it's none of my business whether you do buy into it. I've bought into certain amounts of it. I find fascinating stuff. The way our great predecessors, and St. Augustine is a significant predecessor for Protestant theology, okay? When we use St. Augustine, when I look back at what they did, they integrated a lot of stuff without corrupting or polluting Christianity, okay? So some of the stuff about Primal Religion is fascinating because we'll see Ronald Eyre, who is the commentator, who really introduces himself Friday morning in the film on Hinduism, who he is. He was a director of the Royal Shakespeare Theatre in England, and we'll see in the film on Protestantism that he grew up Methodist. Okay, so as someone with a Protestant background, he has trouble with idolatry. Oh, is that idolatry? You know, in his Hinduism, the video in the Hinduism section, the title of it is 330 Million Gods. Whoa, idolatry? Well, we're going to find out that they're more like angels, angelic beings. They're not really gods. There's only one absolute. Whoa, sound familiar? At any rate, we'll see that there's a variety of things that come up in these films that do challenge and attract us in marvelous ways. And Primal Religion, we'll see, commented on as something that is not available for export. It's rooted in a locale. And you really don't need to jot anything down about that because I'll go through it very specifically. But what I'd like to introduce would just be, if you have handout 4A, if you look at the back of handout 4A, you'll see that there are 6 categories that are very helpful in understanding a different religion, major world religion. And as a matter of fact, these are, you don't need to get out handout 10 or handout 11, but these are the first 2 questions of the material from handout 10 on the questions for the midterm. Namely, what are the 6 categories? And I will always give you these 6 names. Okay, now I'm probably not going to be able to go through all of these before 9:45 when I want to start the film, but I want to at least get a jump on this. Excuse me. The different categories are referred to as ritual, mythological, doctrinal, and of course you all have that right there in front of you, so there's not necessarily any need to write any of this down. And that's again why I've given you so much that is in print, because you don't have to. I can remember before, this dates me as being really old, before the availability of such effective Xerox machines and what have you, I can remember being incredibly grateful for going into a class where the teacher outlined the textbook on the board. And I walked out with a crippled wrist every day, but very grateful that I had it all. My thought is you have most of what may be important outlines already, and therefore you would want to jot down within that. Okay? Now the first 5 are these different areas, okay, that we're going to see in all these major world religions. The reason that I've cut off experiential and dealt with that as separate is all of these are experiences, okay? They are dynamic, immediate, powerful, personal, enveloping experiences, and so the experiential is not really a separate category, it's woven all through this, okay? Now what I want to do is at least get started on understanding what these categories are and what they say. Excuse me, please. These were referred to in that earlier textbook as categories or dimensions of awareness. How do we become aware of various things? Okay? we become aware of various things because they're doable. Okay, I'm going to have various barbaric English words here that will capture what's going on. That a ritual is doable. When I do something, it makes me aware in different ways. So there are probably few examples in current American culture that are more relevant here than the women's movement. Okay, where womankind, and we are almost certainly going to have a woman as the Democratic candidate for the president. This will come back in the film, the video also. But the last thing that we're seeing here are the scenes of the villages. And that may seem pretty unimportant. But we'll see as we go on that what's behind the credits is something that the makers of the films have seen that the entire film was about. It'll be very distinctive in some of them. It narrows down to a letterbox and shows us exactly what something that has been referred to literally in print earlier in the film. And so this, remember what we said, what is the meaning of Primal Religion? Is it's not available for export. So part of this would be recognizing that what the soul of the primal religious experience is about is the environment. In other words, it's the whole area that these people live in. Let me stop that. At any rate, what this is doing is emphasizing that the entire film was about a community that is rooted in a locale. In other words, what he said when he tried to define what was meant by primal religion. Now, we'll take a break, and then we can deal with this a little bit more systematically. But while we had just seen what was at the conclusion of the film there, it helps to really bring it home to you that all we saw was the village, which is immovable, not available for export. Okay, you take a lot of things with them. The fact that their literatures are not written down, they're carried around in the heads of those older people. Okay, so that the villages are not available for export. And then we just saw what? The jungle, the rock. Remember, woman is made of rock. And we'll pick up on that when we talk about the mythological, meaning the visualizable. Is that a put down, that woman is just kind of brutish or whatever else? Or is woman the substance of the environment and the strength, and like the skeleton as the bones of your body and the strength of your body? And that's what womankind is. And we'll pick up on that. But at any rate, in seeing that, what we saw was that second burial, and then we saw the village, we saw the sky, and that was significant in that story of the creation story, the separation of light from darkness, okay? And then just the environment. It was so simple. Because the primal religious experience is that simple and unexportable, okay? So let's take a break for about 15 minutes. Let me shut this off. And start in a very obvious place in a way, namely, I'm going to pick up on what's behind me, and this without being paranoid, and we can turn to it in a minute or so, but I want to stay with the film. But initially, I'd like to, once we are back in, I'll pick up from here and talk about its relationship to the film, which may be helpful also. But I'll also do a little bit of logistics and say, okay, everybody, let's take out this particular page and this particular page, and this is where this fits in. Okay, so it will tie you directly into specific areas in the notes that you can refer to. Okay? However, you all just saw that film. Any questions? Yes, Henry.
How big of an area is the one that we were splitting into?
How big an area, a geographical area? I've looked at it. The island used to be called Celebes, C-E-L-E-B-E-S, okay? And I've pulled it up, and it's a good-sized island, and this is a pretty good-sized section of the island. So I would hazard, I don't know, 250, 300 square miles or more, okay? And it's a whole civilization. I have my father's National Geographics from 1929, and maybe I should bring it in. I'm getting a good enough as a techie with this to, I should be able to pull it up online and just show it to you, but I've got these same people from the 1930s, and they're all wearing more or less nothing, okay? In other words, that is a distracting aspect of the film, is that so much of it is these people who are dressed in Western clothing, and that doesn't seem right. And the invasion of the tourist groups is distracting, okay? But that gives yet another tone to it, is what will guarantee the preservation of this religious experience? Did you catch that bit about the new high priest? That he wants, in a word, to be modern. Was that a little scary? Okay, he wants the writings written down in a book. He wants a place in the government offices to run the programs, and he wants it taught in the schools. I mean, in a way, that sounds terrific, but in a way, that they're not going to be primal anymore.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because you could kind of like connect it to the other religions and how they have.
You could connect it to the other religions,
and
yes.
Like, when did they start deciding that was going to be successful? And,
You mean when did a particular religion decide that a particular mode of conduct would be?
It was like, did they just want to write it down?
Did they want to just write it down? Well, we'll see with all of them, and you may think that Hinduism is pretty alien and pretty ancient and pretty primal, and there are certainly some aspects of that, but they are astoundingly sophisticated. I mean, they have their versions of St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas, literally, and huge amounts of writings. And one could simply say, probably, in the development of culture, as a society emerges from its more primal experience, and especially when they start having trade routes back and forth among themselves, and there's an establishment of colonies of their communities elsewhere, they're going to want to take it, they're going to want to export, okay, and supposedly primal religion is not available for export. So what happens is it starts modernizing. And I don't know that they ever figured it out consciously, if that's what your question was, but it just happened. Okay. Now, but I was going to expect you, and if you think about it, come up with anybody notice anything that strikes you as kind of disgusting?
Yeah, like the way they handle the rice with their feet, like.
Oh, they tromp the rice. Well, you guys may have drunk wine that was trampled out.
That's also true.
Okay. Okay. Maybe it sounds disgusting or whatever else. Takes 3 years to bury somebody. Where is he, she? Wow. The Ronald Eyre is the fellow with the British accent, and he'll introduce himself at the beginning of the film on Hinduism. But he put out a book after making this series, and he has a comment in there that pretty much any Toraja individual grew up with the aroma of a deceased ancestor in the village. Okay? And I don't know whether you have experienced this. I won't try to appeal to anything disgusting. But supposedly the sense of smell is the most easily fatigued of all of the senses, okay, of your body. Namely, it tunes out, okay? Which is why I've been on an island, as a matter of fact, it's where my son-in-law is from, American Samoa, and the big industry is tuna, and they have a tuna cannery, and it is horrific. But I guess if you work there, you just get used to it. So, but the point that I'm trying to touch on here now is we'll start talking about rituals, and we'll start talking about social, okay? And we'll start talking about ethical, namely what you ought to do. This is what you ought to do with your dead. So you all pick up on that when they were carrying those caskets up the side of the mountain? It's pretty much just bones, okay? Because everything else is gone. True. Okay? Because that was part of it. And other aspects of the rituals that we saw in here. Okay? But maybe if I start working through these, that will suggest some things directly from the film that you may want to interrupt me and ask about, or ask about something completely different because it reminded you of it. And please do that. Okay? Interrupt me. Okay? At any rate, I started to make that pitch again that my classes are improved by the sound of other people's voices, and it does get me speaking directly to you. So I'd appreciate it if you weren't uncomfortable doing that. At any rate, the mythological. Be careful about saying that mythological means mythic, untrue, false, legendary, or whatever. If I'm going to give you a barbaric English but rememberable word, mythological means seeable. Okay, I'm going to be playing games with a bull all the way down here if I can. Okay, but a word that you might be a little bit more familiar with from other experiences with conversations about myth and figurative language is connotative, and that what connotative means is multiple meanings. So I'm going to kind of date myself by the examples from contemporary music that I use. But Stevie Wonder, and I just saw him, he was at a funeral celebration for Prince, okay? Stevie Wonder's blind, okay? Stevie Wonder has a song, You are the sunshine of my life? Stevie, what do you know about sunshine? Okay, so I do this when I taught intro. First year, we would talk about literalism and interpreting scripture. And it really helps you to say, if somebody's dealing as a fundamentalist and says evolution contradicts scripture and evolution you destroys your faith, and you stop and say, excuse me, the book of Genesis says that God is responsible for creation. Science tells us how. Next problem. Okay? At any rate, what we get in Genesis is a figurative description of God as a pottery maker. What did we get in this film? An image of the high God as a blacksmith. Okay? At his forge, he creates these different animals. Okay? So it's visualizable. So seeable means connotative. So when Stevie Wonder says, you are the sunshine of my life, and it's almost as though there's a left hook that he can catch us with, because we're saying, Stevie Wonder, if we get a little sick, you don't know anything about sunshine, although apparently he did have some sight until he was 5 or 6 years old, or thereabouts, when he lost his sight completely. Okay, maybe Stevie Wonder in his darkness knows better than we who can see. I'm going to give you a denotative meaning of sunshine. Okay, connotative meaning of sunshine, you are the sunshine of my life. Okay, denotative, which is going to be closer to the doctrinal, so I'm overlapping a little bit here, and doctrinal is to some extent thinkable. Okay, it's going to be denotative, and the denotative meaning for sunshine would be photons from a nearby star, right? That's what sunshine is. Okay? Except that Stevie Wonder is saying, you are the sunshine of my life. Maybe he, in his darkness, knows better than we who have eyes to see photons from a nearby star. Okay? He knows better than we how women and men are the sunshine of one another's lives. So is that a true statement? To say someone is the sunshine of your life? Yes, but you can't take it literally. Okay, so the mythological, do you have a second? Okay, mythological is going to be about stories, images, visualizable things that create an awareness visually, not by action, but because you see it, okay, that you see. So that if I can even use kind of a pun here, that example of Stevie Wonder. Did you get what I was trying to do there? Okay, I think you did. You got it, that I was trying to use visual photons from a nearby star and contrasting that with Stevie Wonder's thing. But how about if I put it in almost a pun? Do you see? Do you see what I mean? Okay? And that doesn't mean visually, but you got it. Okay, Henry, you're going to ask something.
Yes, I'm going to ask you to explain that. Denotative.
And connotative? Okay. Denotative means single meaning.
Okay.
Water is H2O. Connotative, multiple meaning. Okay? When Jesus talks about the water of life. Okay? And when I started to say something there about teaching first-year students, we used to have so much fun just for a while, because I would talk to women and men like yourselves, but right out of high school. And I did this also when I taught high school, dealing with connotative and denotative language. Can you all think of examples from contemporary music? Mine are really dated. There's one from the Eagles, if you even remember the Eagles, which you might, Witchy Woman. Don't let the sound of your wheels make you crazy. So you understand what that means right away. Namely, don't let the pace of life. So connotatively, that's about the pace of life. But let's just say an archaeologist discovers a fragment of that song 1,000 years from now. Don't let the sound of your own wheels make you crazy. Is that about roller skates? Is that about disco roller skating? Is that about living near the interstate and you hear the 18-wheelers going by? Stuff like that. No, that's a denotative meaning. And you sometimes miss it if you use denotative meaning. So the denotative meanings are very often a distortion. But at any rate, we got the mythological. By the way, great stories of the mythological. Did you like the bit about the rats? Okay? When you visually think rat, what do you think? Whoa, I remember going to a restaurant one time, and somebody said, the restaurant, I won't mention it for permanent use, but it's in Jackson, Mississippi, and it's just a spectacular steak and seafood restaurant. And when I was teaching up there, I would go, and I'd get there as early as possible because there are huge lines, and it's wonderful. Everybody stands around inside waiting for a table, and people will order French fried onions and stuff like that, and pass them around to complete strangers. It's a great place. Well, I would get there at 3:30. They opened at 4. And I'd get there really early, get a table. I sat down, and I was sitting there one time. When they served you dinner, it came on a plate that was so hot you could not touch it. And they warned you. And they served it with gloves and put it down on a pad or what have you. I was really glad because that really said the plate was disinfected. Because I was sitting there at 3:30, 3:45, and this big rat comes out from under one of the booths and goes underneath the service station in the middle of the restaurant. Okay, if you think that, when the story of the rats and the rats eating the rice, no. Don't you think that? Okay? What you need to think is, Walt Disney, adorable little chipmunks. Are chipmunks kind of brown, small rats with stripes down there? Have you ever seen a chipmunk? They're adorable. Okay? Or other things like hamsters or one of the other things that people have, you know, get the baby
Guinea pigs.
gerbils and guinea pigs and stuff like that. So that's what you have to think. These adorable creatures brought the first grains of rice, right? And now, just because of this technological innovation that they have 2 crops of rice, the rats think. I'm close to this because I'm familiar with the Alabama beach mouse, which is a threatened animal, which is slowing down development of the Fort Morgan Peninsula. So it's remaining much more the way it was originally, which a lot of real estate people despise because they want Fort Morgan Peninsula to be wall-to-wall condominiums the way you have in Orange Beach or Gulf Shores. Okay? But at any rate, these are adorable little creatures. And they're very different. They're very different, but it's called the Alabama beach mouse. Okay? If you think, so what am I doing? I'm trying to take an example of a visualizable experience that makes us aware of something, and we become aware of the relationship between human beings and nature, okay, in these people's experience. Same thing goes for the creation story. Okay? Let's look at that creation story for a minute. Okay? When the darkness disappeared, there were 7 figures, okay? And 1 disappeared and 5 went to look for? Anybody? 5 went to look for her. So did she become the principle of feminine presence throughout matter, throughout nature? So notice, womankind isn't created. She emerged from rock. Okay? So could we have a whole separate 3-credit course just on the Tarajas? Okay, and some of you that are in sociology or the anthropology section of sociology, what you do in cultural anthropology, and a lot of this course in a way is cultural anthropology. Okay? But you would see that creation story, which is visualizable, okay, it's seeable, and there are all kinds of connotative statements in it. For example, womankind. As I mentioned when I was talking about the credit, womankind emerges from rock. What does that say? You know, we might say, well, we put that in the category of other kind of dismissive attitudes towards their culture. When it says something profound about strength, about female strength and presence. Did you get it also? It might sound like a put down that they didn't. This would be closer to the social, an example of the social, okay? That each house, there are no temples? My goodness, what a bunch of atheists. There are no temples, no churches. The religious ceremonies are in the home. Each house has a navel pillar, think belly button. Each house has a navel pillar, which is made out of rock, which connects you to bedrock, which is womankind. Okay? So notice how all of this fits together in all kinds of rich ways. Okay? Well, let's continue on. The doctrinal, the best example of the doctrinal is a little distracting because in a way, a culture like this is not going to have very much systematic thought. Okay? It's not going to have analytic, clear, scientific explanations. but one occurred in the film, and it's a little distracting because it's Western. It's kind of a Western imposition upon them, and you'll get it the second I refer to it. Okay? Namely, specifically when he referred to it, and I'll put it right here in the middle, okay, because it's kind of such an important example, when he says, and I'll quote him even with his British accent, "If I have it right, divinity for the Tarajas occurs in the shape of a triangle with the high god at the top." You don't need to spell these people's names on tests or anything like that. If you do some kind of approximation, or just say, so don't anybody ever be paranoid about spelling all these obscure names of gods and customs and things. Brahmatua is at the top, and then at the bottom are ancestors, okay? Ancestors and the Deata spirits, okay? The Deata spirits are a great example of the mythological, okay? What are the Irish version of the Deata spirits? Anybody? Symbol for Notre Dame football? Leprechauns, okay? Or Shakespeare's play, I never can remember whether it's Midsummer Night's Dream or The Tempest, that has, I started to say Tinkerbell, but it's not Tinkerbell, it's Ariel, okay? Or Caliban, earth spirits, okay? So they're visualizable. Remember, he said they wear golden sarongs, they have yellow skin, they speak Tarajanese, they're little people, okay? But they inhabit nature, okay? So Ronald Eyre summarizes this by saying the Deata spirits are nature, okay? And the ancestors are tradition. Okay, that's really clear and helpful, except that it's kind of distorting, because it implies that your traditions aren't natural. Bingo, back to the women's movement, okay? Is it natural, or is it just tradition that males and females have different roles in our society? They obviously have different roles in Taraja society, right? Did you catch the threshing of the rice? Did you notice that some of them weren't hitting the rice? They were hitting the side of it, and that was probably no male could do that, okay? Because one is woman, and that's what women do, okay? And to be a tomina, which means someone who breathes. A tomina is someone who breathes. A high priest is tominani, one who sings. Okay, so the roles. Now that will get us into another one in the social, and I'll develop that in a minute. But at any rate, this is a great example of the doctrinal, but it's Western. Excuse me. And it misrepresents Taraja society because it makes a distinction between tradition and nature. Or Ronald Eyre at any rate did that. When they're going to say, no. All of our traditions are natural. Okay? I'm about to say something insulting. Ashley, please don't be in a fury at this. Okay, and don't tell anybody in your family about this at all. Gilmore said that womankind is supposed to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. Okay? Because that's what, that's the old male chauvinist dismissal, patriarchal dismissal. Okay, that anatomy is destiny. Women have wombs, and therefore they're supposed to produce children, and that's female identity. And if you don't do that, somehow you're not woman. Okay? And if you go out and try to be a male, well, you're just butch, or whatever. Okay? And so, wait a minute, no. We recognize that all of those things that I was just, those are traditions. They're not central to nature. Okay? They're really not. And I guess you all might say in our era, when there are all these controversies about transgender recognition, whether it's restrooms or whatever else it might be, is a whole. And notice the opposition in the United States of America is going to say it's not just a tradition that women and men have separate bathrooms, okay? It's built on nature, and I'll make sure I get everybody's attention here. God cares about all that stuff, okay? Whereas any number of other people would say, no, God doesn't have a hang-up with, unisex bathrooms or what have you. People are respectful of one another and stuff like that. I remember being in them in Europe, and it really was a bit much, okay? Because you're in Europe, and, maybe you don't even have to go or anything like that, but you're sitting on the john because you have to change your T-shirt or something like that. And the woman who is maintaining the bathroom is mopping right next to where your feet are, Namely, it's just that I can remember there was, I don't know whether Ally McBeal is something that is in your guys' experience ever. Ashley, was that running when you ever remember that? Ashley, whether you watched it or not? Did you ever watch, pardon?
Like the 90s.
Like the 90s, so you guys were barely born. Okay, they had unisex bathrooms, and every time you turned around, they'd be chit-chatting in some bathroom, and I think I'd really rather chat somewhere else, you know. Anyway, so what is that all about? That's all about customs, although that's about the social, okay, and I'll get to that in a minute. But at any rate, I think these are, and by the way, let me stop for a second and clarify what's going on here. I'm dealing with handout 10. If you would maybe get out handout 10 and handout 11, you'll see specifically what I'm talking about. And I'm perfectly happy that I was dealing with this before we got compulsive about notes and answering questions and passing tests and whatever else, because I wanted it to live. And the video lives in a lot of ways, and so I've been trying to make these categories begin to live. So if you look at question 1 and 2 on handout 10, okay, you'd say that's exactly what we've been doing, is dealing with that. So I need to get one out myself so that I am paying attention exactly to you doing this literally, okay, on handout 10. So, handout 10 is saying, explain and give an example of each of the 6 categories from the videotapes. That's what we're doing. And that's, by the way, on the back of 4A, okay, is specific examples from the videotapes. But it could be from class readings. It could be from either of the textbooks that you all are working with. But it could be from outside experience. You might have some really good examples from a poetry course that you took this past semester or whatever that has good examples of the mythological, say, okay? But notice how then the hook in here is explain how your example is a good example. Okay? So let's look up on the board and answer the second half of that question. The ritual of the baptism situations is a good example because it was something that women and men do. And in the doing of experiencing baptism as total immersion or what have you, people get an awareness of their belief or an awareness of that they don't believe it, or at any rate they're challenged to come to a deeper awareness of this. The mythological, that I gave you those examples, the example of the rats in the rice field, or the example of womankind emerging from rock. Those are good examples because they're seeable, they're visualizable, they're connotative, okay? And that fits in. The doctrinal example of the triangle is something that you can think, you can analyze, it's clear, okay? Even if it misrepresents Taraja culture, okay, it is something that fits the description of what the doctrinal category would be. And it's denotative in as far as it can be. So let's continue on with the ethical, okay? The ethical is pre-rational, okay? How am I going to do this? Feelable, okay? It's feelable pre-rationally. Okay, the adverb is important because it's not something like the Ten Commandments where somebody would say, thou shalt not kill, and I'm not going to kill because I don't want to be vulnerable to being killed myself or whatever else. It's pre-rational, okay? Namely, and I can pick up on that example about transgendered bathrooms as an example of it, is that people would say, this is just not right, okay? And they don't have it figured out yet, okay? Let me ask you guys something straight out, okay? Should women be combat soldiers? Not to happen. Henry? No, I was, I'd like to get an answer.
I say yes.
You'd say yes. Anybody say no?
I think if they're capable of doing the job as good as a male, then they should be able to.
If they're capable of doing the job, and that includes perhaps carrying a dead, a wounded comrade, and that all that nonsense. Why shouldn't that bias me? Some of that stuff about saying it's exclusively a physical image. What would you say, Ashley?
I think if they want to be, they should have the right to.
Okay. But is there something about woman? So you guys are thoroughly modern in this thing that it's not contrary to somebody's womanhood, motherhood, okay, being a caring, nurturing person to machine gun somebody, shoot somebody down with an AK-47, okay, which is what you got to do. And
think men are better suited for the job, but if a woman thinks she can.
Unless you're a mother grizzly bear,
Yeah.
and then don't get between her and her little ones, okay? And that's true of womankind in given situations. I had a great story where I use it when we talk about the miraculous female strength. This guy was working on his truck and the jack broke and the truck fell on him. And she called the rescue squad. And when the rescue squad got there, she had somehow gotten the truck off of the guy. Namely, we do not know what human strength is until women and men are put under incredible crises of one kind or another. I bring it up because it's an example of rational insight into the miraculous. And do we have dimensions in our bodies that sometimes get called miraculous but aren't necessarily? But when I asked Ashley about machine gunning somebody, and I'm reading a history of Stonewall Jackson now, and it's horrific. And women are not combat soldiers. And I've got something from the 1930s that says, well, actually it was before women could vote, which was 1920, so it would be earlier than that. Women should not vote, should not be politicians, because politics is the gutter of American society, and women are above it. Well, once upon a time, people thought that was true. But people don't anymore. Notice my example is probably more distracting than the point that I'm trying to make. Gilmore, what was the point? What was the point of it? The point was that the ethical is about something that you feel before you rationalize it. Once you start rationalize it, you'll say, well, okay, that's okay. I can figure that out. I have an example, which I guess I'll go ahead and share with you, but it's so graphic that I sometimes get uncomfortable sharing it, but it's really an example of the ethical that is done away with when you rationalize it. I was working in Pennsylvania Dutch country, this is really primal, with an old-fashioned scythe, you know, that you guys may have seen in images of death, that he's going around in black and he has this big scythe. Well, the blade is about that long, okay, and it's silvery sharp. And I was not allowed to work out whatever until this Pennsylvania Dutch guy thought I was good enough to sharpen it myself and not mess up the blade. You know, he was always thinking, you boys don't know nothing, you know, what have you, just mess it up. So anyway, I'm out using a scythe, you know, and it's a June day, and it's an incredible blue sun and the grass, and I'm trimming around these pine trees, and I've got Levi's on, and the Levi's are kind of gathered up. I want to make this as graphic as possible because of where it goes. So I had the Levi's tucked, and I had some high-cut boots that I was working on, and I was, you know, trimming around, and I hit a rabbit. And what I remember is scarlet blood across this silver blade of the scythe. And what I had to do was put it out of its misery immediately, which is what I did. I have to this day the sense that that should not have happened. Okay? Now, any number of people will say, Gilmore, I hope you didn't have to go to too much therapy to get over that. Okay? Because the rabbit could have been killed by a hawk that night. It could have been hit by a car. It was maybe loaded with parasites. Just don't get yourself in a bother about it. In other words, when I deal with it rationally. But what the point is here is this is pre-rational feeling. The sense that the divine does not want you to do such and so. Like the rats. Okay? Once you get a rational explanation of the rat situation in Taraja land, okay, you kill off the rats. And that's what they did. But for some people, that was an assault, as I said in the video, that was an assault on tradition. Okay? And we say that in our societies, it is slippery slope. Once you let something happen, okay, once we allow for physician-assisted suicide, are we then going, and some people may have a pre-rational hostility to killing people, right? Or allowing them to kill themselves, or giving them the means to kill themselves. And do you notice the slippery slope in America now already? Well, what about people that it's just too expensive to keep alive, but they're in a coma? So they can't be physician-assisted because they're not in a position to make the decision. Okay, and it's going to take, it's not just shutting off a heart-lung machine or something like that. Okay, are we going to allow the killing of newborn infants that are physically handicapped? Okay, you may have heard, and some of you have been in a philosophy class, because some people were in a course that I taught this past semester, where there is a philosopher at Princeton that says, yes, we should allow the killing of such worthless or useless people. Okay? Now, I don't know where you all are coming from on this, but I can just imagine, pre-rationally, that's unthinkable. Okay? That's awful. Okay? Which then gets us thinking about various other issues. Okay? But I only want to hit the issue that especially in a primal religion, there's going to be lots of stuff that they haven't rationalized. And you have to do it this way because we've always done it. Or because Kwan Matua wants women and men to have these different roles or whatever else. Okay? So, at any rate, that dramatizes what the ethical is. Okay? So my thought in that situation with the scythe was that something happened that just should not have happened. It was just awful. And it's just too bad, but, accidents happen, and I've obviously coped with it, or not, over the decades. At any rate, the social, and I've tried to figure out how do I keep social as part of doable, seeable, thinkable, feelable, relatable, okay? How are you somebody who can relate within society? And there's a great example of that. Did you catch that one about the Taraja way of dying? When Ronald Ayers said, the Taraja way of dying is that people die across the laps of their families. So I'm going to try to dramatize this, that I'm sitting on the floor here. I may have disappeared from the video, but at any rate, I'm right here, I promise you. And people are facing me with their legs this way, right? And the person who is dying in our arms. And I was teaching this in a mini years ago when there was a woman in the class who was married and had children and stuff like that. And she interrupted me, yay, do it. And she said, isn't that lovely? It's sort of like the circle of life, okay? You die as you are born in the arms of those who love you. Does this sound better than dying in an antiseptic hospital? Okay? My mother died at age 91 in her own home with no extra surgery or whatever else, in her sleep, with her daughter on one side of her and her best friend on the other side of her, a picture of the Blessed Mother and Jesus on the wall that she had bought in her youth, and is buried next to my father in Arlington Cemetery outside of across the river from Washington, D.C. Okay? Do you want to die? Would you like to die in that whole thing you've heard about, which is another aspect of the ethical, to die in a hospice? Or do you want to die alone in an antiseptic hospital? Okay? Now notice, I'd like, if you all are answering questions 1 or 2, I'd like you to be able to define, explain, give examples of each of the areas, okay, separately, but you're smart people. And you're going to see how they overlap, big time. So that example that I just gave, okay, was that an example of a ritual? That you were doing something? Whoa, big time. Does it tell you who you are? Does it tell you, is it an example of the social? Because this is your grandmother, grandfather, uncle, aunt, parent. Sadly, if there was a terrible accident, brother, sister, or something like that. So it's a great example of the social, namely dying in the arms of your family. It's a great example of the social. It's a great example of the ritual. It's a great example of the ethical. You got to be there. You can't say, oh, what the hell, I'm going to go fishing instead. I don't think so. Okay? Okay? Namely, it's an example of the ethical. So notice how they all overlap. Okay? In various ways. Now, the final category is experiential. It's not experimental. Okay? So it's all about experience. And all of these 5 that I've worked through with you all, okay? What I've tried to do is dramatize a particular experience. In other words, I've tried to make it live in a way. And that's, I hope, what each of these, and I realize these words are kind of barbaric English, but it makes it very simple and accessible to you. The doable. So that second question that says, how are they differently? Okay? How do the 6 categories differently make a believer aware of what's going on in the mind and the heart of the believer? Okay? I think I should change that question. How do the 6 categories differently make an observer aware of what's going on in the mind and the heart of the believer? Okay? I guess it could be either. But basically, it's saying that doing It's differently, okay? What are the differences among these? How do the 6 categories differently make somebody aware? And in that case, it should stay believer. How do the 6 categories differently make the believer? Namely, it's the person who believes, who's becoming aware of what's going on in the mind and in his or her mind and heart. Okay, because doing is different from seeing, which is different from thinking, which is different from and the feeling is a feeling of ought. It's moral, feelable, pre-rational, moral and ought. And the social is relatable. So they're all very different. And there are different ways that we saw examples of in the film that we just saw. So they all can be brought in there as examples. So we're okay on questions 1 and 2. And you guys probably could have aced those questions in junior or senior year high school. Probably. Social studies class, I bet. Okay? And remember, I'm going to give you the 6 words. I'll always have these 6 words both in the midterm and in the final, just to trigger the thing and not ask you to remember them, because that's the kind of short-term memory that disappears pretty quickly. And I'm interested that you're able to be reflective and insightful in how you do these. But we're okay with those 6 categories and how they would fit the video that we just saw? That remind anybody of anything else in the video that you might want to bring up? Yes.
One question, I missed this, taking notes on it. They said something about like dressing in yellow and black. Was there any significance?
Oh, right. He said nobody wears black, but for us, which would be a funeral thing to wear because of death. And no, you wear yellow. And what it said in the video was this is the funeral of the previous high priest, okay, who presides over the rice festivals. And the ripe rice is golden in its color. And so the thing to wear to a funeral is something that would honor the high priest by wearing golden or yellow.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what that was about. Okay. Which, again, would sensitize us or make us aware of a visualizable example. Okay? So, by the way, that's how you tie in the word myth. That for in many ways myths are ancient stories, but how are ancient stories, or how are they expressions that capture something that's profoundly true? And that's why I took that example of Stevie Wonder saying, "You are the sunshine of my life." That that's a truth, but it's a connotative truth. And you understand it better when you realize what it's connoting, which sometimes you get. I mean, good music, good art, what have you, it gets you right away. It grabs you. Okay, and that's why. Okay? So we're okay in those first 2? Okay, I asked you if you would get handout 10 out. If you would also, I presume you have handout 11 there somewhere? Okay. And this set, of course, this set does not yet have handout 11 in it. But at any rate, if you look at handout 11 for a minute. The first page is how I correct. We found out over the years that it takes students a while to kind of get on the wavelength of faculty that they've never been in a classroom with before. And this is meant to help you with that. You know, how does this person correct? And this will help you a little bit with that. Okay? I've got a cautionary note at the bottom is about skipping class, which is usually not much of an issue during the mini. Okay? But if you'd skip over then to page 2 of this same one, you'll notice that if you skip down to about 8 lines down, it says possible areas of importance. Okay, it has 1 and 2. That's questions 1 and 2. The numbers on these on handout 11 correspond intentionally and directly with the numbers on handout 10. So this is questions 1 and 2, the categories. And therefore, it gives you, you see in the left-hand margin, A, ritual, B, mythological, C, doctrinal, etc. Okay? So that would help you with that. And then you could go on to, and then if you get down to the bottom of the page, you see it says number 3, primal. So on handout 10, what it says on handout 10 is, how is primal religion not available for export? And this is the beginning of some helpful material to answer that, okay? Which we can go over in a minute from the page here, but I'd like to deal that with you first and make it kind of live on the board, okay? So we're basically doing question 3 on handout 10. Okay? And that picks up from handout 4A. Remember, handout 4A had that specific material about I want to get the particular reference to it where he talks about what is meant by primal religion. So you might write this down, say in parentheses next to handout 10, question 3, in parentheses, handout 4A, item 6. Okay, so 4A, item 6 directly speaks to that, and that's what I'm going to put on the board. Okay? Okay. Now, what I can do in putting it on the board is give you a quick and accessible way of dealing with that. Okay? And I think it's basically pretty easy, and you'll get that one. And I never mean to be too much of a smart aleck up here in saying you could have aced that in a social studies class in high school, and I think many of you could, of course. And this one also. What does it mean to say that primal religion is not available for export? Okay, it means that it is rooted in a locale. And if you take the women and men out of that locale, they literally cease to be who they are. Now that strikes us as very odd, because if I were having this class in Tampa, Florida, at the Jesuit High School in Tampa, Florida, you'd be the same and I'd be the same, right? There wouldn't be any big deal, okay? Unless you all were Native Americans from this area, and you were permanently uprooted. There's an example of an Indian tribe in the Southwest, where, of course, the Navajos are and the Pueblo Indians and what have you. The Indian tribe is called the Hopi, H-O-P-I. The United States found uranium on their tribal lands. So let's just say this is a meeting of the village elders, the tribal elders. And you all are among the tribal elders or the tribal family people, okay? The United States government is going to give you $10 million per family for the whole tribe to move so that they can dig up all the uranium from under your burial grounds. Are you going to accept that? Do a lot with $10 million per family. A lot of, and the United States is giving you all sorts of undeveloped area that is just rangeland. I mean, but it might be very beautiful and what have you. It's not part of the national park thing, although if they really want you really bad, want your land really badly, they might make it some part of federal parkland or whatever else. The quote that I remember from this was the Hopi Indian response was, "We have no word for exile." Okay? When you move away from your tribal lands, you cease to be who you are. Okay? So notice this being available for export is very much about geography. Okay? So there are two major points of departure to talk about in dealing with this particular question. One of them is obviously geography. The other one is the social fabric is not available for export. Okay? So basically, this is setting up the question, available for export, okay? Geography, social fabric. Okay, my son-in-law, because I've only been to American Samoa because my son-in-law is from there, they bury their dead right next to their homes. And nowadays, they bury them in concrete kind of enclosures like mausoleums, okay? So as you drive down the main drag at 25 miles an hour, the entire island, the speed limit is 25 miles an hour. And it's literally, in many ways, a third world society because of the way the federal government does or does not support things or whatever. And so the main street is full of potholes and stuff like that. There are little buses that pick people up and drop people off. And so you literally resign yourself to go in from one end of the island to another at 25 miles an hour. And that is, I think that the whole island is about 90 miles long. but a lot of it is not developed, of course. But at any rate, the geography cannot be exported. Okay? So what in the film could not be exported?
Jungle.
The jungle itself, which is unique, okay? Were you about to say something, Ashley?
Like the middle area where they did the burials.
Right, the cliffs, okay? So cemeteries, notice that cemetery has three E's in it. Three E's. Cemeteries, okay, the cliffs. So the rock, and notice the significance of rock. Rock isn't just rock. Rock is somehow the extension or the origin of womankind. So if women, let's just say you guys have been, you graduated from Spring Hill College, and one of you is in marketing or advertising, one of you is in finance, business, stuff like that, and you go to this land, to Raja land, right after a tsunami, God forbid, and you adopt this adorable little kid. Could happen, and bring her back to the United States. Okay, there was an unmarried woman here at Spring Hill College who adopted a little girl from an orphanage in India. Kid grew up, and all those things that you worry about are you adopt a kid from an orphanage, are they going to have a terrible malnutrition? Is it going to give them an abnormally low IQ or whatever else? This young woman was gorgeous and brilliant, dark-skinned India. So not one of the light-skinned we'll see when we talk about the caste system in India. Positively black hair and positively black dark eyes and dark skin. And she was really bright. And the woman took her back to India to help her reconnect with her roots. Okay? Now that was very dear, the woman who adopted her. But if you guys adopt this little girl from Taraja land and raise her in Atlanta or Mobile or Jacksonville or New Orleans or wherever, is she going to be able to go home again? She can physically go back, but does she want to fit into that kind of defined sense that if you are female, you do only this and you don't do that? She's not going to want anything to do with that. I've seen it myself working in a youth group in a parish with young women who were Vietnamese, and their parents were Vietnamese Vietnam. And these young women, one of them won the valedictorian at Fairhill High School, okay? They weren't allowed to go on canoe trips with the Catholic Church's youth group until the males of their family, most of whom couldn't swim, okay? The fathers and brothers and what have you could go on the canoe trip with them, okay? So I saw it with Vietnamese. I also saw it with a neat young woman too, a pistol in your face, young women, and they were Sicilian. Can you spell mafia? Mothers and Fathers Italian Association. They did not want to hear what their father told them that the old country expected from them. They could not go back. So this is going to fit the second one, the social fabric. Okay? So social fabric is going to be the customs. Okay? It's going to be the dhyana spirits. So what else would fit that? So customs is so much. Funerals. Okay? You might say also even the death, well, it would be part of the death ceremony when somebody lies across the legs of those who love them and their family. Well, not if you don't know whether they're going to die or not, and you've come to the United States and people have careers that are hundreds of miles away. The actual death is not going to be when everybody can be there, whereas if you're all in the same village, you can. Okay. Geography. Did you notice what happens when you die? Let me pick up on that. Excuse me. Your soul goes to the stars. Okay. I have only been south of the equator. I guess I've been south of the equator twice. But the constellations are different depending on whether you're north or south of the equator. Okay? So it comes home to me when you see the Olympics or something. Maybe you'll see it this summer. But I can't remember if it's the Australian or the New Zealand flag has the flag of England, which is the Union Jack. The Union Jack is the cross of St. George, which is a plus sign, and the cross of St. Andrew, which is why Alabama has a red cross, because it's the cross of St. Andrew, and that, of course, then was part of the Confederate battle flag. But at any rate, it's called the Union Jack because it's the union of England and Scotland. So this was the cross of St. George and the cross of St. Andrew, which is the red and white of that flag. And then the entire rest of the flag is dark blue, except for, I'm not going to make this right, but the Southern Cross, which is a constellation in the Southern Hemisphere. So if you're in Taraja land and your dead have gone to the stars and you're living with your family in Chicago, okay, you are uprooted in all sorts of ways. Now, what you have on handout 11 develops this a bit, okay? So on the bottom of page 2, where it says primal is not exportable, 2 major areas, and I said social matrix instead of social fabric. Matrix is interesting. I never can understand why the mathematics of a matrix, which is an XY axis, is called matrix, because the word matrix comes from the Latin word for mother. The Latin word for mother is mater. Okay, and so I think the plural of it, mater, matrice, the plural of it would be the same as the plural of matrix. Okay. The naval pillar is a great example in the geography, so I put that in there. Okay. The naval pillar, which, now you could take one with you, but it's not going to, you could build one where you went, but it wouldn't route you to your actual territory, where you actually should be, okay? Where it says there, Peter has to go back to the land, that's from the next film that we're going to see tomorrow about the Zulus, and to what extent are the Zulus torn between the modern world and their tradition. Okay, so this says in the bottom of page 2, physical references were very valuable. Let's go over to page 3. Okay, rocks, mountains, stars, naval pillars. Okay, now we're going to see the Zulu film, the film that we're going to see tomorrow, and I'm happy to begin to introduce it now. The film that we'll see tomorrow is about African Christianity, and African Christianity being torn between the modern Western European-oriented cultural experience and their roots. So this is the Zulu film, as we're going to see tomorrow. It's not only about African Zionists, but about Lutherans, okay? So then to go on, primitive means pure. Is that true or false? We're going to hear a rector say that now, okay? Generations of missionaries of our faiths have called primal religion paganism or diabolical, or other non-complimentary terms. Perhaps, so let's just stop here for a minute. Was Christianity ever primal? You're saying no. Why? I mean, you're right, honestly.
There wasn't really one location. Jesus kind of bounced around.
Well, not only that, but the Catholic, and therefore I think also the Anglican, Episcopal, and Lutheran traditions after Easter are into the Acts of the Apostles, which were written about people who were in Greece, Asia Minor. Every time you turn around, somebody who's reading has to pronounce some of these impossible names. Not only Antioch and Pamphylia and Cyprus and Thessalonica and Corinth and all those places. So Christianity was always available for export. So let me hit you with something else just real quick and close up with this with you guys. Is Christianity now primal? I'm playing games. It depends on how you define primal. Is Christianity about primal dimensions of you and me? About death and life and bread and wine and oil and human sexuality, reproduction, marriage, children. Okay?
You mean like a very broad sense? It is like it's primal to Earth?
Well, oh, that's nice.
You mean to this planet?
Yeah.
But we're going to take it to Mars. There's something in yesterday's CBS Online about a new rocket that they're talking more and more seriously about. And it'll be true of your you guys maybe, or maybe your children or your grandchildren are going to be in a colony on Mars. Okay. Anyway, the issue there depends on how you define primal. We obviously can define primal within the film as not available for export, and that's what questions 3 and 4, which I'll do tomorrow morning, are about. So I'm asking you to respond to questions 3 and 4 out of the film, and not necessarily out of this wider thing. But I'm urging you, as people of intelligence and insight and critical questioning, to not just swallow what a particular course is handing out, but to recognize that primal could mean something far more deeply experienced than just cultural anthropology, which is what this is. Okay, thanks. Let me let you go.
Thank you.